Here we go.
You found the only Geek Culture Showcast. This is the Geek Speak Show. The Geek Speak Show talks about and to the movers and shakers in geek culture.
God bless the geek.
The Geek Speak Show is powered by GeekTyrant.com, Collider.com, RamaScreen.com, and MightyVale.com. Get ready to speak geek on the Geek Speak Show with your host, Henry. Hey everybody, welcome to the Geek Speak Show. Yes, all of us are almost here. Rachel's in New York somewhere. So I'm Henry.
And I am Batman. No, I'm not Batman.
Where's Arielle? Give my Arielle back.
Arielle's here. Arielle just lost her voice talking over the Comic-Con crowds for 5 days straight.
No, just tell them the truth. You're actually getting ready for a couple of days from now, Dark Knight Rises.
I've been practicing really hard to kill my throat and be as gravelly as I can be.
See, I think they did that, honestly. We can ask Michael Uslan. He's going to be on in a few minutes with us, the executive producer of the Dark Knight Rises. We can ask him if they did that on purpose. The complaint the whole time from the first teaser, trailers, everything that we've gotten from Dark Knight Rises has been that you can't understand Tom Hardy and what he's saying as Bane.
You couldn't actually just understand you just there.
Well, that's to get the attention away from Christian Bale's voice like this. Get a worse voice.
Right. You just be like, hey, if we make it even more incomprehensible, then everyone's going to have to listen really carefully, and then they'll be really paying attention.
Yeah, so guess what we're going to talk about on this week's show?
Princess Powerpuff.
Yes, and how she's going to rise, and Bane is going to have that venom poison. And
Princess Powerpuff is all rainbows and puppies. That's the only thing we're going to talk about this entire show.
Not in Gotham City.
No.
So actually, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
Last week, little something happened, kind of big.
Yeah, Geek Prom, also known as San Diego Comic-Con, and I was down there with the California Browncoats raising money for the Trevor Project and having an, oh my god, so much fun time for the 10th anniversary of Firefly. What?
But wait. You still didn't get to go?
I did not go to the panel. I watched it on the internet when I got home.
So like I said on last week's show, you're telling me that the president of the Browncoats, the California Browncoats, wasn't in that panel. You should have gotten red carpet treatment and everything. I'm
going to point out that I am just a very generous, magnanimous person. I wanted all of the other people who haven't been to big events to have the seat that I might have gotten otherwise.
So that means you lost a bet.
I lost a bet real hard.
So, well, what did you see? What was that thing you came in wearing?
Okay, so I got the best new toy ever.
We should be doing the video show. This is a visual thing. But
it is a visual thing.
Try to explain it.
We can do, you know what? I'll make Henry take some pictures. We'll put it on my Twitter account at AKA Geek Girl.
Well, I have a Polaroid. I don't have those.
No, you're going to have a fancy phone with, oh my goodness, he's so difficult, you people. I got the best new toy. They are called now we know I'm back. I got these ears. They're called Neko Mimi ears, and they move based on my pulse and my brain waves. I can move things with my brain.
They really do move.
No, they really do move. They're all mechanized and motorized. And if I'm sort of calm, then they're going to be pointed down. And if I'm alert and paying attention, they're pointed up. And if I'm really excited about something, they shake and they move. And oh my goodness, I want to do everything wearing them ever.
Well, when you came in, one was pointing one way, one was the other. What was that? What does that mean?
Calibrating.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
New batteries or something.
No, it just meant that I was thinking about what does this heart rate mean? Where's her low heart rate and where's her high heart rate and all that other stuff.
Yeah, the next time we do a video show, you have to wear those and show everybody how they work. And by the way,
I want to interview people wearing them, get two and then do the interview on the video show with both of us wearing them.
Yeah, and then it'll mean something when you say, "Hey, my microphone is down here. Hello."
Yeah. Okay. Look, I don't want to be really inappropriate.
But she's going to anyway.
But I'm going to be a little bit. It was the most amazing thing walking around Comic-Con and having people look at my face. You don't understand. That's never happened before.
You can see her picture on our staff section, and you'll see what she's talking about.
Well,
but what did you see at Comic-Con?
Well, most of my time was spent during the day was spent in the exhibit hall. But it turns out the exhibit hall, when my face isn't pressed into my phone reading Twitter, is really awesome. I saw so many cool costumes. Like, seriously, you guys, the level of cosplay at Comic-Con, I thought it was high before. It has stepped up its game. Y'all are rocking it down there. I felt like I had my couple of days of costumes, and I was basically like, wow, I'm like plebeian here with my little bit of sewn costumes and things. Y'all are going all out. There were some really amazing costumes. The vendors all had like all their good stuff out, and I even got to go to the top of the G4 Tower, like, which is the top of the they built a 2-story platform, and I got to go up on the platform. There were no celebrities or anybody there. It was just empty. And so I got to see.
Probably why they let you up there.
Yeah, no, that's why I got to go up. But I got to actually see the con floor with the mass of people flowing through, and it was like half of the exhibit hall, and then you could just like see the people moving. It was so cool.
You guys always you and Rachel make fun of me with my Polaroid. They have that fancy phone, and you didn't take a picture.
I took a video, yo. What? I'll put that one up on somewhere too, so people can see. Yeah, see, what up? I took that picture.
Where's the video?
It's on my fancy phone. I'll put it on the internet later. I've been very tired lately. Oddly enough, that whole like 3 hours of sleep for 5 days in a row, it grates on a person. But it was totally worth it. And I got to go see the Nerdist podcast live tape. I got to see Wootstock. I got to be part of the my organization, the California Browncoats. We do a Dr. Horrible panel sing-along. So you get to sing along with the movie playing. But we did a costume contest before that, and I got to MC the costume contest, which was so much fun. And I got to walk around and meet Colin Ferguson from Eureka. He was walking around at like 3 a.m. and just like was the nicest guy. I'm like, oh, can I have your picture? Because it's really late and you're probably tired. And he stopped and he took a picture with me, and it was really sweet. And I got inches away from Sir Ian McKellen. Inches. I was inches away from the man.
You shared oxygen with him.
Oh my God, I did. I actually okay, so you guys have to understand that Gandalf is basically my childhood hero, and I got to be inches from him. And so like in that moment, like as soon as that moment had passed, I texted my dad, and I'm like, Daddy, I saw Gandalf. I was right there.
You know, you could have said hi to him. He's a very, very nice person.
Oh, I would have, but the security guys were actually like blocking him off, and he was trying to make a very calm exit where it was very graceful and gracious, and I didn't want to be that crazy fan that was all like, no, you have to pay attention to me right now, because he was trying to like leave the crowd that he was visiting at 1 a.m. because they were camping out overnight.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, no, but they were so sweet. He was really, really wonderful and sweet to everybody that he talked to. So he has my undying love.
So that's a little bit of what's happening at San Diego Comic-Con. Next, we shrink it, bring it here to San Francisco. APE, Alternative Press Expo in October. We will be there, and maybe, not promising anything, maybe we'll have some passes for all of you to go there, especially if you haven't gone there. This is a really, really cool one, a lot smaller than anything is smaller than Comic-Con, but a lot smaller than Comic-Con, a lot more intimate.
APE is great though, because then you get to really meet like the creators and the people at their tables, and I love it for that.
Now, I'm assuming you haven't seen The Amazing Spider-Man yet?
Well, you say assuming, but that's because you know that I haven't.
That's also calling it amazing. We're assuming that it's amazing. It's not. I mean,
yeah, he's doing air quotes every time he says amazing, you guys. It's hilarious.
Actually, I get $1 every time I say amazing. And I'm hungry. It's lunchtime almost. But no, seriously, I got a couple of emails from you guys, and you guys can send them if you want, Henry at thegeekspeakshow.com, saying that, hey, you promised a spoiler-filled review. I mean, you kind of got the idea from the non-spoiler one from Rachel. Rachel loved it. I didn't. And it's not, I don't care about the 3D stuff. You guys know that the tech doesn't do anything for me, obviously, since I still have my Polaroid and I still draw on caves. The story is what didn't do it for me. I mean, and not the story, but the Peter Parker character. I mean, I didn't feel anything for him. I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't want him to win in the end. I honestly, and I said that in the non-spoiler review, I didn't want him to get the powers, first of all, because he just seemed like a punk to me.
Well, and what I heard was actually really opposite. It was all of the people that I know who didn't really like the first 3 of these Spider-Man movies actually liked the story, and they felt a lot more connection with him as Spider-Man. Well, as him as Peter Parker. So when I go to see it, because I will go see it, I will be able to come back in and just tell Henry how wrong he is.
I heard that actually from, when we were filming at Lee's for the second video show. A lot of people said this is the perfect Spider-Man from the comics, and I asked, what comics are you reading?
The ones that you're not. Well, is it the Brian Michael Bendis, like the Amazing Spider-Man reboot? Well, they are good, but maybe this one just isn't good to you.
And a lot of people too. There are a lot of people. No, this is a lot like Scott Pilgrim. What I noticed that when that movie came out, was 2 years ago now. When that movie came out. On air, we were a live call-in show at the time. We took a lot of calls that day. It turned into a thing, and a lot of our audience, obviously, they called in and said we're gonna go see Scott Pilgrim. And then for the Expendables, which came out that same weekend, we had like 2 or 3 people call in, and the box office showed the opposite. Expendables made bajillions of dollars, and Scott Pilgrim didn't. Well,
Expendables is a much more accessible movie than Scott Pilgrim is only great if you have lived that particular nerd life.
Yeah.
Admit it. Oh, hey, I really am back. That's twice now. We should...
Just making sure it is you. It's not a hologram.
We should make a drinking game every time I make my noise. Somebody take a shot.
There you go. So there's my Spider-Man review, sort of spoilery. I wasn't happy with it. But now... I don't have to worry about anything because, like I always say, in Nolan I trust. So come in a couple days
couple
now.
Hours, couple of days.
We're gonna be there. You and I are gonna be there at midnight. You're all gonna be there at midnight because it's all sold out. I didn't get it in IMAX. I'll probably see it for the 3rd or 4th time in IMAX over the weekend. I'm gonna get in that XD thing, which is supposed to be IMAX, but it's not really IMAX.
It's the IMAX-ish.
All I care about is that
you just want to see the movie.
Yes.
What movie do you want to see?
What is that one? Ice Age or whatever?
Really? Come on. They've all heard this.
Oh, yeah. The Dark Knight Rises. That's the one I want to see.
That's the movie. That's the one coming out. We are so excited about it.
So, we're so excited that we have the entire cast on for you right now. Let's start with the person I trust, Christopher Nolan. Here he is, director of The Dark Knight Rises, talking Inception. No,
come on.
Okay, here he is.
Congratulations, Christopher. You knocked it out of the park again. And as I started my interview with you for The Dark Knight and The Batman Begins, how do you keep topping yourself?
Thank you. Well, it's very kind of you to say. I mean, to be honest, we only go into a film if we know that we've got a story to tell, and we really felt like we needed to finish the story and put it together as one piece of work, one trilogy. And so we felt very strongly going into it that we had a story to tell, and that's the thing you really need.
Was it, really, it must have been so amazing to be able to flesh out Batman/Bruce Wayne in this respect. What was it like to watch that evolution, knowing that it was going to be the end too? I
was just really enjoying watching what Christian had done with the role. We've been working on these films for 9 years. It's a long time that I've been watching him develop the character. And it was pretty amazing to go back and look at the first 2 films and just see how the character of Bruce Wayne had changed going into the 3rd film. And then making and shooting The Dark Knight Rises, just watching Christian take that character even further. It's been a real pleasure.
I wanted to ask you that because what was it like from the first day that you guys started working on this 9 years ago, and to watch him now? We know he's a brilliant actor. He wins an Oscar finally. He's so fantastic. But from your perspective, to watch him grow, what has been the biggest change for you that you've seen?
I think Christian's extremely consistent in his methodology. So really, there's been no change in the way he works. Even after he won his Oscar and all that, he's the same Christian, which is terrific. He's a very grounded performer, and the way he approaches the characters is very grounded. He really just tries to inhabit the psychology and taking on Bruce Wayne, a Bruce Wayne who's really been in a kind of self-imposed isolation in a sense for about 8 years, almost like a Howard Hughes figure. Christian just really tried to approach that characterization from inside and really present the truth of that and what that would be, and it's a fun thing to watch on screen.
Yeah. Everybody's always with anticipation. Chris Nolan's opening scenes. What are they going to be like? Again, I don't know how you're going to top this one. That plane stunt, can you just take me through that a little bit? And was your heart like non-stop pounding when you were shooting that?
It was pretty intense to shoot. We tried to do as much of it in camera as possible. So, we were up in helicopters filming a fuselage of a plane hanging from a heavy lift helicopter, and stunt guys on the side of it and everything. I found it pretty thrilling, actually, and it's one of the great privileges of my job, really, that you get to sit there with your writing partners and come up with something outlandish, and then spend months planning it with great stunt coordinators, special effects guys, and everything, and then you actually get to go up in a helicopter and see these amazing things take place in front of you. It's a really it's a joy.
Were any mishaps, or I hope not, but that's pretty dangerous, my friend.
Well, it looks very dangerous, but an enormous amount of planning and care goes into choosing the right people to do it, who have the right skills and are trained correctly, and very methodical, slow planning. And those guys were up there in Scotland, where we shot the sequence for many months, just figuring it all out in a very calm way, and so the shoot went very smoothly. We were finished a week early, I think, because it just came together very well, and that's a lot of very talented people working for a long time.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the new people in your stable here. Let's start with Anne Hathaway, who was just, oh God, was she good.
Yeah.
Tell me about, maybe her audition, or what was it about her that you thought, yeah, she's gonna be a great Catwoman?
I didn't really approach it from saying, okay, who's going to make a great Catwoman? It was really about, what's Anne going to bring to the character of Selina Kyle. For me, approaching these icons, and this was true of Batman with Christian, it was true of the Joker with Heath, and it's very true of Catwoman with Anne. You can't approach the icon head on. It's too daunting. It's more a question of, okay, who would this person be in real life, in our world, where we're trying to be a bit more grounded with things? How do we approach the icon from the ground up? How do we say, okay, what's the real character? What's going on in her head? And Anne is such a talented actor. She's also a great performer, if you like. She's got those two sides, so she can portray the interior life of the character with great authenticity and relatability. But she can also be very expressive and inhabit a larger-than-life character, and obviously Selina, Catwoman, she's both those things, and Anne brings it together really beautifully.
Yeah, what was the reaction when she first walked out on set with that Catwoman outfit on?
People were pretty impressed. The crew was very impressed, I think. But I think they were even more impressed when they saw what she could do in that outfit and how she could fight and kick and do just all these amazing things. And she trained for many months very hard to figure all that out. And it's very important that she do it all herself, because there's performance in all of those movements. There's a dance-like quality to the way Selina has to move, and you have to really believe in that and invest in that. And what Anne's done, I don't think anyone will realize how much of it she's done on her own.
Tom Hardy, wow. Why was Bane the right villain for this, to end this trilogy?
For me, Bane was the right villain because we had never put Batman and Bruce Wayne up against a physical adversary, someone who could stand toe-to-toe with him in a physical sense and project a very genuine sense of physical threat that Batman might not actually survive the conflict with this person. And Bane really presented that opportunity. And when I thought about who could play that threatening a character using only his eyes and his voice, Tom, who I'd just worked with on Inception, seemed the natural choice. And It was very exciting when he said he would do it.
It was exciting watching the fighter go against the warrior.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was absolute good. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who of course you worked with in Inception. There wouldn't be any doubt in my mind having you work with him again. He's fantastic.
He's terrific, and he's such a professional. So easy to work with, lovely guy. But more important than any of that, just an incredible talent. And when you work with somebody as talented as Joe or Tom, you want to repeat that experience. And that's why I worked with Christian on 4 different films. I worked with Michael Caine on 5 different films. You really, in a selfish way, when you work with talented people, you just want to keep using them, keep bringing them into things.
Yeah, we know how brilliant you are in the dramas and the thrillers that you bring us, but I would like to see a Christopher Nolan romantic comedy. Do you think you have one in your back pocket?
I certainly don't have one in my back pocket. I think that might be a challenge beyond what I'm up for. But hey, you never know.
You never know. I think you can handle it. No problem at all. It's such a pleasure always to talk to you. And Christopher, hats off. It's just a brilliant, spectacular movie. Thank you so much for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's Christopher Nolan. Now let us move to... You do it, actually. You have the voice for it today.
Here is Batman.
That's too...
No, too much?
Yeah.
Too little?
Actually, that's not enough. It's got to be very gravelly.
I just got my voice back a little bit. Okay. Here is Batman.
Okay. Congratulations, Christian. Man, you stepped it up to the plate and you hit a home run. And I want to know, how important is it, having played this guy now for 9 years, to keep having that evolution, to make him change? How important was that in this one?
It's very important. There's a great character here, and so there's just nothing to be lazy about. There's a boy, there's a man here who has put his own life on hold, who's driven by this great pain and desire for revenge and wish for purposefulness and usefulness in his life, and so I always viewed him as being every bit as interesting as any of the villains in any of the movies.
Yeah, and almost as damaged as them as well.
Oh, very much so. He's a very damaged man.
And of course, working with Chris Nolan all these years, and I just, amazes me every time I walk out of one of his films how he just keeps making them better and better. Do you still pinch yourself when you're working with this man?
He's very good, isn't he? Yeah.
What's it like to work next to him?
He's very, he's very confident. He's been so. He hasn't changed since the first day that I met him. He's always been very efficient and clear about what it is that he wants, and he gets it.
It's amazing, and his tea helps too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, you know about that. Yeah, I don't know how he takes so much of that. He just drinks it nonstop all day long. Yeah.
There was something about that Earl Grey. It must work.
Yeah.
You have Batman. Bruce Wayne goes up against some great people in this film. Let's first talk about Anne Hathaway and your experience working with her and what you thought of her performance, because I thought she was amazing.
I think that from the first time that I read with her, I turned to Chris afterwards and I went, I think that that's it, because I recognized from being within the suit that that you had to have a reason for wearing these bizarre costumes. In Chris's world, you had to make that mean something, and with Bruce Wayne, it's because he feels monstrous, and so he creates this monster in order to channel that. And I found that with Anne, she was able in the scenes where she's not in her Catwoman costume to be very real and keep him with the atmosphere of Chris's movies, but then when she put it on, that she was wearing it, she wasn't dominated by it, and you have to be able to do that, without going over the top, without making it too cartoonish. You had to be able to overcome the clothes, the costume, and she was very, very able to do that.
Yeah. Okay, the fighter going against the warrior, Tom Hardy. My God, was he good in this? How did you guys just develop the fight scenes? You're both wearing these crazy masks. Right. You could probably not hear each other, and I was just, watching. It was brilliant.
It could be a little tricky sometimes to hear each other, and we worked out little sort of signals for each other. But Tom's a really wonderful actor, and he was always able to convey so much despite having so much of his face being covered. Chris casts very, very well.
Yeah, he certainly does. He just has a knack for it. Bruce Wayne, he's facing fears, Batman's facing fears, and, you look back at your career, Christian, and the roles that you choose are always so fantastic. You're so good. Do you feel that with each role that you take on that it makes you a stronger actor because you're facing fears with roles?
I don't really think about it. I don't know. I think that's for other people to observe.
Okay, yeah, no, just because it's interesting how the stuff that you've taken on, you just really, you grasp them and you really take them on, and it's so fantastic. Working with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, tell me about him, because another amazing actor.
Yeah, he plays a somewhat more quiet character, obviously, than Anne or Tom are playing in this, but somebody who's very important because he, when we return to Bruce Wayne at the beginning of this movie, he's somebody who has lost all sense of purpose and of self, and it's very much Joe's character, Blake, who inspires him again, and he has all of the brashness of youth, and that reminds Bruce Wayne of who he used to be, and encourages him to step back up again.
The scenes with Michael Caine, how did you get through them?
It's always easier with Michael. You know, this is the fourth movie that we've made together, and you know, he's a real pro. He's one of the best out there, and you know, when you're working with people that you know well, and we know our characters very well, then things happen actually very easily and very smoothly. You know, and he's the heart of the movie, really. You know, he keeps Bruce Wayne, Batman, in check, and makes sure that he's staying on the right path.
I didn't know I was going to need Kleenex for this one.
All right.
Yeah, it's really...
Yeah. Well, Michael will do that to you.
Yeah, well, you too.
Whether it's crying or laughing with Michael.
Yeah,
you know.
and just, you know, being able to put on that suit for the last time, do you have a recollection of what that was like when you took off the cowl and everything for the last time?
Absolutely, yeah. We were in New York, and you know, like everything, they spend a lot of time with it. It becomes sort of a love-hate thing because I spent so many hours sitting, you know, in it for 7 months at a time for each movie. But I was always honored to be able to wear it and to be able to, you know, inhabit this very iconic character. Yeah, you know, these moments happen quite quietly. Always on movies, it's just, hey, that's the end. That was the last shot, and I just took a few minutes to myself to keep it on, realizing that was the last time it would be on. And yeah, no, it was a meaningful moment. You know, these movies have meant a great deal to me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Is that refreshing for you as an actor? You're now working with Terrence Malick, another brilliant director, of course, and to not talk about a movie, to be able to keep it secret. I have to say that for me, just as an audience viewer, just as a fan going into this film, I love the fact that I knew nothing about it, and it just makes it so much better experience. It must be great for an actor not to have to talk about it.
Yes.
You can't embellish on that a little bit, on how you feel about just keeping secret?
I think that's about as clear as I can get. It's very nice not to have to talk about it. Yeah.
Well, I've been talking about it now.
Have the movie speak for itself.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Again, you did such a great job. Thank you for 3 spectacular Batman films.
Thank you very much.
And I look forward to what you have coming up next for us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And now the ever delightful Anne Hathaway.
Spectacular job, and my goodness, Anne Hathaway can kick some butt. Who knew?
It turns out, under the right circumstances, that could happen.
What was it like for you to, you know, get the call from Christopher Nolan, or, you know, however it played out, and to find out that you were going to be in this film and play Catwoman?
Well, it had been a journey to just the audition process. It was, you know, first it was rumors that Chris was considering a new female character, and then it was, okay, so he's going to meet with a couple girls, and then he told me what the character was, and then it was whether or not you were going to be one of the girls invited to screen test. So it was a 3.5-month process. So by the time I got it, it just seemed like it couldn't possibly happen. I mean, I'd loved the character since I was a little girl, and it just didn't seem possible that it would be a reality in my life. And so then when I did get it, and then I went to set, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had working on a movie. It was just, I mean, it's still very, very pinch yourself territory.
Yeah, I was going to ask if it's a bucket list thing for you.
I didn't even know it was, because I mean, there's something, Chris got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame today, and he said something about how he's like, I literally never thought this would happen to me. And it's the same thing. You just don't imagine that, because Michelle Pfeiffer's performance is so iconic, you just don't think that that opportunity will ever come up again. And the fact that it did while I was the right age, it's kind of mind-blowing. But it's after the fact. It's a bucket list thing.
Getting in shape.
It's a postscript.
It's a postscript, exactly. Getting in shape. Like, now one day, you know, you got the role, and, you know, you're in great shape, and you look always fantastic. But my goodness, there's probably a lot of special training would have to go into something like that.
It was more time in the gym than I think I'd ever spent in my life combined, what I had to do for this movie. It was great. They showed me a lot of the stunts that they wanted me to do and a lot of the fighting styles, and Chris had said he wanted me to do all of the things that I could, and I'm a hyper-competitive person, so I was like, I'm going to do it all. I'm going to do everything. So it was about getting myself in good enough shape that I could do all my own fighting, which I was pleased by the end I had.
Yeah, and doing it in heels, my dear?
And doing it in heels. I had to learn everything in flats and then slowly ramp it up.
Unbelievable. I loved how she just, you lifted your leg over that
Thank you.
Pretty cool move.
I threw that in the screen test. I think that helped.
It was awesome. Working with Christian Bale. Now, here you are, you're new. This is the third one. So, a lot of people on this set have worked with him. They know him for 9 years. What was your first impression of him, and what was it like to work with a guy like that?
He's a deep... I know this sounds weird because there shouldn't be degrees of authenticity, but he's a deeply authentic person. Very, very much himself. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he's just a love. I loved him instantly, and I still do. I think he's adorable, and he's just such a great, 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 great actor. Every day was a privilege.
Do you still find at this point that you're learning from these people on the sets that you look at this movie, who was on this set? We're talking, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, of course. I hope I always learn from the people that I work with. I mean, especially when you're in this kind of company. I mean, I remember coming in one day and I saw Joe and I'm like, hey, you had that scene with Oldman the other day. How was it? He's like, oh my God, I can't even talk about what he did. And then I'm like, I know Christian the other day did this thing, and Michael. And we were just like trading notes about what everybody was doing. It was like, I don't know, trading baseball cards or something. But it was, it was a masterclass every day. Everybody that you saw work, and everybody had, everyone comes from such different backgrounds, but somehow everyone found the same note to play in the film, and I believe that's due to Chris and the strength of his and Jonah's script.
Yeah, what is it about that man that he just keeps everything so calm, yet he just keeps topping himself with every film?
I think the calmness comes from he's a really good person. He's a wonderful father, and so I think he's able to be in the midst of chaos and keep his cool. And he's also he has a legitimately brilliant mind. I mean, it's become an overused word but when I think of brilliance, I think of Chris. And and it's another overused word. He is a genius. These are very, very big words, but he earns them. And he's funny as anything. So he's kind of too good to be true.
And he drinks tea.
Everything about this film, he drinks a lot of tea. He drinks a tremendous amount of tea. I believe that's the secret. It's all about Earl Grey.
Exactly. Your first reaction to yourself looking at yourself in that costume, putting that Catwoman suit on. Do you remember it?
My first reaction was at the camera test, and I still had a ways to go before I was happy with it. But I did have a moment where I was standing with Tom, who was in the full Bane get-up, and then Christian was wearing the bat suit, and I was dressed as Catwoman, and I said, this is either going to work spectacularly, or we're going to look like rejects from Hollywood Boulevard. But I think it was the former.
Looked amazing.
Okay, so now for the next one, actually, you want to take this one.
The next one is Gary Oldman, awesome, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. What?
Or Joe, as they call him on set now.
Totally would.
Congratulations to both of you. This is an outstanding film. And I just want to know, from the perspective of two men that have worked with Christopher Nolan, how the hell he keeps stepping it up.
Got a lot of good ideas. And I think you want to know why I think he keeps stepping it up is because he genuinely loves what he does. He's not doing it to make a bunch of money or to prove anything to anybody. And as popular as his movies are, he really just loves movies and makes them, I think, mostly for himself and his own joy. Yeah. And that's why it comes off so well.
Gary, how about you, to work with a man like that?
I just think he's talented. I think it's as simple as that. He's just got, and he knows what, he has a great sense of sort of story arc and where the movie needs to deliver. He's got a great sense of what this is what the audience needs here. This is what they need to feel here, and this will take us here and then it has its conclusion. You know, he seems to have a sort of wonderful sense of that. And there are people that do, you know, but it's ones and zeros. I don't know. It's just a mysterious thing. But you don't. We were talking about this earlier. But you don't see him making an epic movie like this. You don't see him doing it. He just very calm, very comes in in his uniform.
He does it with ease.
Yeah,
and his tea,
with his waistcoat and his yeah, and his
vest,
tea,
as we say.
Yeah, his vest and his tea. Yeah,
his Earl Grey. Joseph, for you to be on a set like this and to work with, come on, this legend and everybody else. What was it? No, yourself. Seriously,
No,
is it a pinch myself moment?
Absolutely, it is. And I mean, specifically with Gary, a lot of my favorite actors are the ones who are chameleons. You know, the ones who disappear into their characters, and you can't see the actor, you see the character. And this is a quintessential chameleon right here. You wouldn't recognize him if you watched True Romance, say, and showed that to, you know, someone who's a fan of The Dark Knight and Commissioner Gordon. You wouldn't think that was the same person. That to me is really the highest compliment you can pay to an actor. And yeah, so I would just come to work and absorb and, you know, be...
He's blushing.
Yeah.
But Gary, for you to be able to, you know, what did you think of this guy? Because he's pretty darn talented too.
Don't do that. Come
on,
I'm
not. But I'm not doing it to be kiss ass here. I mean,
but
seriously.
I came up to you one day on the set and I said, it's so honest. I said, you can't put a pin through an insincere moment.
I remember when you said, of course I remember. We were in Nottingham.
We were. Yeah.
Is it refreshing to not talk about a film, to be able to be so secretive? Because I have to tell you, it was just as a fan and an audience member, I was so happy that I didn't know a darn thing about what was going to go happen in this movie. It must be refreshing.
Yeah, you know, when there's a movie coming out that I really, really want to see, I make sure to avoid any trailers or anything that anyone writes about it or anything, because I just want to see the movie from the beginning of the movie.
I mean, I'm a Terrence Malick fan, and I didn't know a thing about The Tree of Life. And then I saw the movie, and I still don't know a thing. That was naughty of me, I'm sorry.
You should have read some articles about it.
I should have read some articles.
I love The Tree of Life.
I couldn't resist it.
Love
but
it.
You know what we do, but there's so much, there's like, there's so many movie magazines, there's so much TV coverage, you've got to, I mean, you would have to live under a rock, wouldn't you, to not hear about some of this stuff. And so it's great when you don't know. I was constantly asked, what is The Dark Knight Rises? You know, what can you give us anything? And I just said, I've got a feeling it's going to be great, and that's all I could say, really. You know.
And you were right, and it really is. Yeah, Joe, I want to ask you, the first time you saw Christian Bale come out in the bat suit.
Oh yeah, well, this is one thing I really love about how Chris makes movies, is the spectacle. Oftentimes is real. That was the case on Inception too. It's not all just a bunch of green screen and computer effects that happen later, and you as the actor have to sort of pretend that you're seeing something magnificent. He likes to make it happen for real and then just shoot it. And yeah, when Christian puts on that suit, it's really there. There's no added digital anything. That just looks like a movie when he's got it on. And
it changes in the suit, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's something that's quite forbidding about him when he's on the set with you.
Well, he looks like a legend. He doesn't look like a person anymore. He looks like
the Batman.
He looks like the Batman. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, you know, Anne Hathaway in her suit. Couldn't have been too tough to do the scenes opposite her in that. She was fantastic too.
Absolutely, yeah. And
she's a revelation in it, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think she is just not. I've never seen her like this, you know.
Yeah. so strong. I love how strong she is, and that can be sexy too. We're so used to, if a girl is going to be sexy, especially in a movie, she has to look like weak and submissive, or like her feet are bound or whatever. And Annie in this movie has taken this character and showed how a really strong woman is so sexy.
Yeah. You a fan of Batman as a kid?
Absolutely. Everyone, I don't think you could ask anybody my age if they were a fan of Batman as a kid and get a no. Everyone is a fan of Batman.
Yeah. You had the lunchbox, I think you told me once.
Yeah, and my mom
pajamas.
sewed me a Batman costume, like a homemade Batman costume. I remember.
I made my own.
As you should.
My mother had her.
Don't buy any of that stuff at the stores,
I
kids.
used to watch Adam West, and my mother had this wide sort of 60s belt, and I stuck cigarette packets to it and then painted it yellow as a utility belt. And I was 27 at the time. But yeah, and the cape, and we had an old shed out in the yard, and I did the bat sign on it with hey, yeah, no Superman, no.
It's the Batman. Again, guys, fantastic job. Thank you so much for this movie. It really is spectacular.
Yeah,
and lovely talking to you both. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You know them from every amazing movie ever. We know them as
the voice on every commercial.
The voice of every commercial ever, Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman.
Congratulations, gentlemen. This one, I don't even know what to say. I walked out of it, my heart is still pounding. How does Chris Nolan do this? He keeps stepping it up with each film that he does.
It's amazing, isn't it?
You'll have to ask him, because I'm telling you, I'm like you. I'm just going, how do you do that?
Yeah. He's like a computer. He knows everything that he wants to do, and he's so quiet. And you ask him the most minuscule little thing, and he has an answer for it.
Yeah.
And he knows. He cuts in his head too, the camera in his head. Oh, it's amazing.
He is amazing. What is it like to just watch that man in action, and how he keeps everything so...
Can't tell you what it's like to watch him. I'll tell you what it's like to work with him.
Yeah.
He's quiet authority.
That's it. That
Really.
describes him. And the thing about it, he always has this coat with a flask of tea in it, and he drinks his tea all day long.
Yeah, a raggedy old coat. I think it's a good luck thing.
A raggedy old
actually.
coat. It's the same overcoat.
And he takes a sip of this tea about every 20 minutes.
And I found out what the tea was. It was Earl Grey tea. Yeah, and that's what he drinks. And he's a tea drinker, and he's watching. He's an Englishman as well. He's drinking tea all day long.
I was really a puddle of tears after this film. Very emotional story. Really, my God, how did you get through the scenes with Christian? There's a couple that I don't want to give anything away in these interviews, but
it's called. I was a method actor, sort of. I trained in method when I was very young, and I picked up a couple of things from Stanislavski. One of them was sense memory. If you go back to a time whenever you want to be really emotional, and I have a moment, which I've never told even my wife what the moment is. But it's a family moment, which makes me, and I can cry. I rarely cry.
Drop of a hat.
Bang, like that. I can go bang, straight into it. I'm not going to do it now because my eyes will be red for the next interview, and they'll wonder what I'm up to.
And
I wanted a
never
Barbara
could.
Walters moment. Come on, do it.
Yeah, Barbara makes everyone cry.
Never been able to. Once. One
Yeah.
time. And they didn't take the shot.
Yeah, I've
Missed
never
it.
cried. I've never cried. I rarely. Oh, please God, mustn't say that. Keep away from that. Right.
But the two of you are the father figures of sorts
We
to
are,
Batman,
yeah.
to Bruce Wayne, and to watch the evolution of somebody like Christian Bale from. It's been 9 years since you guys have been working with him. Morgan, first, just watching his evolution, watching how he's grown as an actor. What's that been like for you to watch him?
I don't know. We all hope that we're growing as actors with, each day that passes. I didn't know Chris's work when we first did so. Afterwards, I got to see a lot of the stuff he'd done prior. Like psych.
That one, the psychological. Yeah, I saw that one too. Yeah. He did some very
guy's
difficult roles.
Awesome. The Machinist.
Yeah.
Golly.
And he always, the last film I saw, before I did the first Batman, the last film I saw him in, it was this skinny little guy like a prisoner or something somewhere, and they were holding him. And on the first day of Batman, in walked Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I thought, how the hell did he do that? I was trying to lose 3 pounds and couldn't do it.
Right.
It's astounding. Isn't it, refreshing as actors to be able to keep something so secretive? I mean, I'm so glad that I, as an audience viewer, just knew nothing going in. And
isn't that good that you know nothing?
Absolutely.
Now, how are you going to write about the movie and not say anything?
I'm not going to say a thing. I don't want people to know. The surprises for me were the best part of this film.
That's the thing. It's why you cry and everything. It's even though it's And the great thing about Chris is what he does, which is so clever as a director for me, is you've got all this CGI and computers and stuff. He doesn't do any of that. If a guy falls off the Empire State Building, it's a real guy falling onto a couple of boxes, And and if there's 11,000 people walking down Waldorf Street or in a football field, there's 11,000 people there. And he never. The only time I was ever in a scene where he used CGI was when 6 million bats came in, and we were quite pleased. We had about 3 bats, and they turned them in, fluttering around, and they turned them in 2 million.
A block.
Yeah, I'd be happy about that too, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's just talk shortly about the newbies on set. Okay, first off, Anne Hathaway. I mean, really?
Awesome
fabulous.
girl.
Lovely.
Awesome.
Lovely.
I shouldn't even use girl term for her. She's an awesome woman.
Yeah. And absolutely ideal for Catwoman,
Fantastic.
She's wonderful.
Tom Hardy. What can I say? Bane. Is he not?
Well, Tom, I saw on British television. I'd never heard of him. And he came on British television as like a Cockney gangster in the area that I come from, so I knew what was right and what was wrong. And he was the toughest gangster I had ever seen on British television. Or anyway, including me. I played a couple of gangsters. He made me look like Mary Poppins. And he was the toughest guy. And then you meet him, and he's a sweetheart. He is Mary Poppins.
Well, that's always the way. The hardest guys in the movies are always the softest touches in real life.
Yeah, the softest touches. Yeah. And he's a wonderful actor and a lovely guy. He's great in this.
Although I don't know anybody that ever beat you in Get Carter.
Oh, Get Carter, yeah. I played a gangster in that.
You were kind of rough.
That was rough.
Yeah, that was kind of rough. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Another. This kid's going to be another amazing actor.
Yeah.
What a cast in this.
Well,
do you still pinch yourselves? Do you guys still pinch yourselves when you get on sets like this at this point in your careers? That people you work with, the stories?
Old hand.
Old hand. No. I mean, I remember, but with Chris, I always remember I was working with John Huston, and I said, one day I just said, what's the art of direction, John? He said, casting.
Right.
And he's right. And he said, if you cast it right, you don't have to do anything. And like John Huston would say, I said, you never give me any directions. He said, you get paid a great deal of money to do this. You don't need me to tell you what to do. And that is how he is.
Yeah.
He lets you go with it, and because he's cast you right, lets you do everything until something isn't quite right. And then he knows exactly how to tell you where to alter it, and he tells you very quietly. He doesn't show you up in front of the rest of the crew.
But you're speaking to Chris Nolan at the same time. That's how he does it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's how Chris Nolan is.
Well, spectacular job, gentlemen. And I'm glad to see that you got to reunite on Now You See Me. I can't wait for that one. And you celebrated your birthday on that set.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Fun time. I missed you by one day. Congratulations. Always lovely to talk to you. And best of luck. This is just fantastic.
Thank you.
So now, that's the entire cast and Christopher Nolan for The Dark Knight Rises. A little movie that's coming out in a couple of days. Let's take a quick break. Have David Lee. He's taken a summer vacation. He hasn't been here for like the past 3 weeks or something. So now let's have him do a comics commentary. I think he's going to talk about Batman. So let's let him do that. We'll come back and talk to the executive producer of The Dark Knight Rises. You know who that is? If you don't, you will right after this.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, for our next attraction,
Comics Commentary with David Lee on the Geek Speak Show.
Hey, welcome back, guys. It's been a good 3 weeks since I shot The Breeze with you. How's it been going? You guys enjoyed that nationwide heat snap that pretty much broke 100 records? Lord knows I didn't. It was a good time for me to stay inside. I looked at the temperature and was like, 80 degrees, I'm staying in. No, not coming outside in that one. In the heat like that, it's always a good time, catch up on movies, watch what you've seen before. In this case, we have a rather good movie coming out. You might know something a little bit about it, called The Dark Knight Rises. Third film in the trilogy, according to Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale. Wow, say that 5 times fast. That it's going to be the final film in the Batman trilogy. Okay, that's a little depressing, really. And so I decided with the upcoming TDKR, I was going to go back and watch the earlier Batman movies. Batman from 1989, Batman Returns, Batman Forever. Ugh, I hate to even admit this, Batman and Robin. And then I turned around and watched Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. So after watching them, I felt an extreme difference in these movies. With the first 4, well, I really only want to acknowledge the first 2, but, the first 2 original movies with Michael Keaton, I really enjoyed the stylized look of Gotham City. It really felt like something you could actually walk into. And we'll touch more on that with the Batman Begins iteration of Gotham City. But with the first Batman, you felt like you could really walk into Gotham City and see these things. And you kind of actually you could see what's going on with Bruce Wayne as Michael Keaton's iteration of him. Keaton did a wonderful job. Jack Nicholson, well, he was just Jack Nicholson wearing Joker makeup. Any of his movies you've seen? Hey, look, that's Joker. No, it's just Jack Nicholson. At the end of the movie, as we all know, I'm sorry, if you haven't seen this, I'm not going to try to help you with spoilers. This movie's easily 20 years old. The movie ends with Batman killing Joker. No good. Batman's not supposed to kill his enemies. But you kind of walked out feeling like, yeah, Batman's a superhero. He's the best one there. Batman Returns. Same type of formula went on, except there was 2 enemies, and seemingly they both died. Come on, Burton. Stop killing Batman's villains here. That one was decent, but then you kind of left, well, what was next? Who was Burton going to kill? And then you had Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. Less said about them, the better. 2 words, bat nipples. That's all I'm going to say. Now you jump forward through time, and now you have the new trilogy. We'll start with Batman Begins. If I thought that the Gotham City of the first 2 Batman movies was good, wow, this one was even better. It really felt like you could go to, say, well, Chicago, which is where they filmed it, but still, you could actually go to Chicago or Detroit or maybe even some in the slums and Bowery of New York, and you could actually feel like you were in Gotham City. Really gave out this realistic vibe to it. Batman Begins basically took Batman back down to a science. You actually got to see where Bruce Wayne created all of his stuff. You could see where he actually trained. You could see the fight begin. But as I learned somewhere else and looking back on this movie, there's actually a depression when you walk out of that movie and you're going, wow, really? It works great in comics, as I was told by somebody else, and now I think about it, I absolutely agree. But in the movies, maybe not so much. When we go to movies, we go to actually have fun, not walk out and go, man, kind of sucks. And then you have The Dark Knight. Dark Knight was Batman Begins cranked to 11. You had the same gritty realism, and then you had the awesome acting job of Heath Ledger as the Joker. I really don't need to say too much on that because, well, it was just bar none great. And if you haven't seen it, well, I'd like to ask you what kind of cave you've been living in and what kind of fungus is best for human consumption. So this movie raged on further, and by the end of it, Joker was still alive. Batman saved the day, but there was still that depression deep down, knowing that, man, Batman didn't turn out any better than he started. He's now on the run. He's on the run. He's got God and everybody after him. Where was the happy ending? You know, with a lot of movies nowadays, you get that kind of happy ending, and you leave the movies feeling rewarded and happy. Amazing Spider-Man is a perfect example of it. When you see the ending of the movie, you go, that's great. I really feel like we've got a sense of closure. Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, no, there wasn't. It was actually depressing coming out of that theater. Now you've got The Dark Knight Rises, one of the most anticipated movies of the summer. They actually kind of started late with the marketing. Back when Dark Knight came out, they were doing marketing and getting a buzz going as early as Comic-Con the year before. With this movie, there really wasn't much of any marketing. I think it was because the Avengers and Spider-Man were coming out this year, but that's kind of still no real excuse. Get that marketing out there. Get us interested in this movie. You had the obvious problem with Bane and his voice. Catwoman looked like, well, Selena Kyle, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it seemed like the only promo pictures we ever got to see was on the steps of some courthouse. Well, congratulations, we've seen all that. Is that the whole movie? That seemed to be the only thing they were drawing off of. Then we found out more and more casting was coming on, and we discovered that Marion Cotillard is playing an unnamed character, which I'm not going to spoil. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt is playing a Gotham City police officer. Kind of seems like shades of Inception, doesn't it? Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Marion Cotillard. You've got Christopher Nolan directing. We need to go deeper into the Batcave, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever. I'll deal with it. And then, after the Avengers and Spider-Man started finishing up their stuff, The Dark Knight Rises really ramped up. I'm actually very interested in seeing this movie because, one, I want to see how the trilogy ends, and two, I really, really, really want to see this movie and come out feeling a little bit with more closure, not so depressed as going, man, this is starting to turn out like the Resident Evil games and the Resident Evil movies where you just didn't get any satisfaction. It's like, okay, yes, we know they're all dead. We know that the world is crap. Why do this? And then a strange thing happened a couple weeks ago, maybe even less than that. Anne Hathaway was on a David Letterman show with David Letterman, obviously. And good old Bucktooth himself decided to potentially spoil the movie for everybody else. Are you kidding me? Apparently he'd seen a screener, and he says I'm not going to say what it is, but he drops a bomb with Anne Hathaway sitting right there and practically spoils the end of the movie. Now, he backtracks and says, I was joking, I'm kidding. But you could see the uncomfortability in Anne Hathaway's eyes and the fact that she outright said to the camera, Chris, I had nothing to do with this. I don't want any part of this. You could tell that it unnerved her. So with that said, I'm anxious to see if this is going to spoil it or not. Either way, I will be there in the movie theater. I will be seeing it, and I'm definitely hoping to walk out with a smile on my face. But whoever directs the next movies, give us a little bit of sense of closure. Stop making these movies so depressing. I understand Batman, the character in the comics, is depressing. It doesn't have to be that way in the movies, guys. Until next time, this is David Lee. I'll see you guys in 7 and in the funny pages.
Just like a lot of people, we've dropped the radio. This is now the Geek Speak Show.
I think you know where that song is from. Welcome back to the Geek Speak Show. So yeah, I think we're going to talk Batman today.
Well, that seems an appropriate theme.
Yeah, just you sound like Batman today, but we just heard from Christopher Nolan, the rest of the cast of The Dark Knight Rises, opening in hours from now. Yes, I've been waiting for 3 years for this. You all know that on the show. hours away now. You and I will be there at midnight, as will everybody listening right now.
Oh, yeah.
So let's have him back again. He was on last year. Michael Uslan, the executive producer of The Dark Knight Rises, also the author of The Boy Who Loved Batman. Go to our link section. It's all on there. You can get the book and find out more about it. Michael, welcome back to the Geek Speak Show.
Thanks so much. I love being here.
Love having you here, especially, like I said, it's hours away from a movie that I've been waiting for. You, obviously, we're waiting for The Avengers, Arielle.
I was waiting for The Avengers, ticking off the time, but that doesn't mean I am any stranger to Batman. I have seen all the previous movies. In fact, I very much love the Batman movies because they always were released on my birthday when the Michael Keaton Batman movies were coming out. It was always like my birthday weekend. So they gotta have. Oh, well, thank you, because I had a lot of Batman themed birthday parties, and it was fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah, and Michael Uslan, actually, he's the reason why we had those Tim Burton movies and all the way to now, the Dark Knight Rises. The reason for that was because Michael wanted the dark Batman on screen, not the Adam West one with the pow.
The campy and the pow and the pow.
Yeah, so Michael, let's start with that. You were on last year. We're not going to cover what we talked about then. But the Adam West Batman, do you think that show was a product of its time from the 60s, or was it just luck that the campiness worked at that time?
No, it was really a product of the times. It was a pop era in our culture when you set the scene in terms of what was going on in Vietnam and post-Kennedy, and you still had the days of the Cheetah Club and the Peppermint Lounge in New York City. It makes sense in that regard, and I certainly don't begrudge the show. I think it's a great way for young kids to become acclimated to Batman, even to this day. But as a hardcore Batman fanboy, as somebody who has known Bob Kane, met Bill Finger, knew Jerry Robinson, I was just horrified that the whole world was laughing at Batman. And that really was the essence of what my problem was with it. Look, I admit the Pow Zap Wham thing was fun for the first couple of weeks, and then it wore very thin on me, especially when I saw it had become the official assignation of all comic books, of all superheroes, of anything having to do with the subject whatsoever, and it was one that would not go away for decades and decades and decades, and that's been part of the odyssey that I've been on, to restore some dignity and respectability to what I call the true Batman, the one created in '39 by Bob and Bill, and as embellished by Jerry. And that was truly important, but also to elevate the comic book as an art form, as indigenous to this country as jazz, and to gain some respectability for the creators, for all the people in the industry. And you guys know the history, hundreds and hundreds of artists and writers and editors and publishers who toiled for so many years, being looked down upon by society, being scorned and derided for the fact that they were involved in something as infantile, if not lurid and dangerous, as comic books. So the fact that this has all led to The Dark Knight Rises in movie theaters and to art exhibitions in the Louvre and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in the United Nations, this has been really the culmination of a goal and a lifelong journey for me.
Before you acquired the rights to Batman to make the darker movie, did you have any doubt at all that, number one, audiences would even like or accept a darker, grittier Batman?
No. And everybody looks back now and says, "What were you, stupid?" How naive could you possibly be? I had such an utter belief in that this was the right thing to do, and that while no one had ever done a dark, serious comic book superhero movie before, that this would be almost like a new type of entertainment, a new type of hero, and could show the world something different. Even when one of my dear mentors, Saul Harrison, who became president of DC Comics, in all sincerity and heart tried to talk me out of to stop me from buying the rights, because he was afraid I would lose everything and that I was tilting at windmills, because as far as he understood, after Batman left the air on TV and the merchandising collapsed and the sales plummeted on the comic books, as he said, "Michael, nobody's interested in Batman anymore. He's as dead as a dodo."
And now you're proven right, and now you can absolutely see that there was a grittier, darker Batman to present to audiences, and that audiences would eat it up. One of the concerns I have, though, is that in the very dark stories that are told in the Batman world, and they are dark, it feels like in a comic book form you can get through that story and you can read it, especially when you're doing it in piecemeal at a time, and the intensity of that darkness doesn't affect you as much as it does when you're in a movie theater. And one of the experiences I've had, especially with this last couple of trilogies, they're so dark. I mean, they're so heavy. And I feel like one of the things that happens is that I'm emotionally exhausted before the movie even gets to the end. And I'm wondering, yeah.
I mean, isn't that the purpose of film, of movies, to impact its audience, to affect them emotionally, to take them to a different perspective, a different level, but it's about impacting them. And when you have what people have scorned as comic book movies that are thematically important and are relevant to everything going on in our country and in many cases the world today, that have deep, traumatized, interesting character arcs that emotionally impact an audience, that actually make you sit in the theater. I have to tell you, I've been doing a lot of lecturing at universities in particular in connection with the Boy Who Loved Batman book. And what I keep hearing from people all over is that, for example, in The Dark Knight, when people were sitting in the blackness of their theaters and watching the sequence where people had to make a choice, do you press the button and blow up the other ship and those people in order to save yourself, or do you not do that? And what happens when you have to make a moral choice and the choices are bad or worse? And what people are telling me is that in the blackness of these theaters, no matter who they were sitting next to, who accompanied them to the movie, they quietly came to their own personal decision as to what they would do. Now, when a movie is reaching people on that kind of a level, I believe that cinema is accomplishing what it was created to do.
Well, and I am so solidly there with you on that point, that any storytelling medium is meant to have that emotional effect, is to make you question your own thoughts and your own judgments. But at that time but it's the difference, I think, in the medium that you're making that choice. You can present that same story in a comic book, and thank goodness these days you can present that story and that choice and that darkness and have that reflected in the world and have it be treated seriously. But when you're then sitting in the movie theater and the immediacy of it, and I admit I asked the same question, and I looked around and I'm like, oh, I have to think about the sort of person that I am. But then there were another 20 minutes of movies and explosions and things that I then had to go through. And I'm just wondering, is that the same thing we can expect with the next movie? Does it go further even into those questions and into that emotional journey? Or is it maybe something where I can get to the end and have the emotional energy left to
Wait, let me
hear
take my
it?
headphones off. I don't want to hear.
What? No, I don't want to know the actual things. I'm just,
no spoiler here.
No spoilers.
No spoiler. But you have chosen to follow a superhero who has no superpowers. You have chosen to follow a superhero whose greatest superpower is his humanity. A guy who is anchored to that humanity pretty much, besides by the people who raised him, his parents, by Alfred and Commissioner Gordon. They anchor him to that humanity. They ground him. He is a traumatized kid. This is a boy who saw his parents murdered before his eyes. He is on a lost horizon type of journey that you have the ability, if you so choose to suspend your disbelief, to really believe in this as a real person traumatized and on this journey, and a journey that you want to follow, because there is an emotional attachment to that character based not only on his very primal origin that seems to cross borders as well as cultures around the world, but because he is human and he's fallible and can die and can get hurt. That's where, to me, the emotional intensity comes from. And if you want something else, there's always the Hulk, and there's always Spider-Man. And those are absolutely valid. I've collected each one since their very first issues that I bought off the stands. But in the case of Batman, you're making a choice to enter into a world that is not the black and white, good versus evil world that we're used to in comic books, especially in the earlier days, but today's gray world of order versus chaos, in which we could all actually believe, thanks to the genius of Chris Nolan, that someone like the Joker could actually exist as a modern-day terrorist in this world. That is an incredible journey.
Okay, I'm sold. That's, oh wow, that's exactly, fantastic point. You win.
That's why
it's
Michael,
not a contest.
That's why Michael Uslan is the executive producer of The Batman Begins and Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. That's who we're talking to. You can read, you should read his memoir, The Boy Who Loved Batman. It's available now on Amazon and all the usual suspects. Have a link on it on our links page. You can go on there. Also, The Dark Knight Rises, as if you didn't know, comes out in a couple of days. And if you didn't, welcome back from Mars. So, Michael, you mentioned a very good comic book, not titles, but comic books there that I see Christopher Nolan borrowed a little bit from those books, and I'm thinking of The Killing Joke and also The Long Halloween. Stories like that are very, very dark. And you're right, that is what Batman is. And evil doesn't always go to jail at the end.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, and this is what Christopher Nolan's been doing. Again, we don't want to get into Dark Knight Rises spoiler territory because I don't like spoilers at all. But going back to when you first had the idea to bring Batman, the Dark Batman, to the screen, this is going back to the '89 one. Even after the success of Richard Donner's Superman, how come Warner Brothers said no to Batman?
I have to bring you back to the context of the times. Back in the 70s, Warner's had acquired DC Comics some years before, and there were people there who were out of the New York City publishing industry, who kind of looked down their nose at comic books, as did society in general. There were a lot of people around who were executives in the entire Hollywood industry and then the publishing industry in Manhattan, as well as in advertising, that really did consider comic books to be cheap and potentially lurid and harmful entertainment for children, and nothing more than that. The prevailing thought at that time in the 70s was Superman was the only character to come out of comic books who could be made into a blockbuster movie. That Batman had been spent on TV, and there wasn't one other property, whether you're talking Marvel, DC, or anyone else, that could happen to. They saw no value in it. And that was what was going on at the time. And the best indicator is, how did I manage to buy the rights to Batman at that particular time? Well, nobody else wanted it, to tell you the truth. Nobody else wanted it. When even Saul was trying to convince me not to hurt myself by taking it on. That's the world in which we lived. So when I entered into the trenches of Hollywood 36 years ago, for me it was a daily fight, because I had to try to convince people that comic books were our modern-day mythology, that it was a legitimate American art form, that it was worthy of their respect, as were the creators as well as the characters in the comic book itself, that comic books and superheroes are not synonymous as they all claimed, that you could walk through any Barnes & Noble and anything you see on their shelves, I could bring you the equivalent genre in comic books and graphic novels. And that it wasn't simply about, well, who had been around the longest, who had sold the most issues that you could make movies based on. And if you look post the Tim Burton Batman movies in that 10-year period or so, some of the biggest comic book movie franchises, Men in Black, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Mask, I really don't think they sold more than 5,000 copies of any issue at any particular month.
No, absolutely. And I think you and I are on exactly that same page with the history. And I'm still, to this day, fighting for the legitimacy of comic books. I work in publishing in San Francisco, a very open-minded place. And I find that I still have to convince people that this is a serious medium. These are telling serious stories, and that this plays to an adult audience. And I'm just thinking, what in your mind were the pivotal movies and comics that came out in between when you bought the rights and when the movies started coming out that helped get this off the ground floor, that actually got it into production. I can think of things like Sandman coming out and winning so many awards, and a couple of movies with more of a science fiction bent. But you were there on the ground floor. Where were the fights? Where were your winning battles?
Well, you got to give credit to Dick Donner's first 2 Superman films. But again, the second that Chris Reeve put the costume on and it moved to Metropolis, it took on a much, much lighter tone. Mm-hmm. It's before the costume that it was as serious as it was. And but that was seminal, number one. In the world of comics, you've got to look to the assistance that Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns gave, because what that did was, in terms of our movie getting made, and it was in the process of beginning to move toward getting made because Tim Burton had come aboard, what it did was it opened people's eyes in Hollywood to the fact that comic books were no longer simply for kids, and that you could invest money in a movie and the audience would not be terminated at age 12. It had shown them in living color that comic books were growing up and could attract that adult audience. So that was really important in terms of the mindset needed to get the Tim Burton '89 movie made.
We're talking to Michael Uslan, the executive director of The Dark Knight Rises and also author of The Boy Who Loved Batman. Dark Knight Rises, of course, coming out in a couple of days. Now, Michael, now that I imagine it's bittersweet for you that we're at the end of Christopher Nolan's trilogy. Warner Brothers, because I've already checked, it's all sold out for the weekend. It's going to be phenomenal, just like Dark Knight. Warner Brothers will, of course, want to continue with Batman movies. I'm assuming you're going to be involved in some way?
You know what? I am not looking beyond this coming weekend in terms of what life is going to bring. But let me say this in general. This character has been around now closing in on 75 years. The people who have produced the comic books in 75 years have managed to bring us back every single Wednesday to find out what's going to happen next. How is this character evolving? Who is the next villain? What is going on with this? It is an almost unprecedented accomplishment. And too often, the folks who are in the comic book industry don't get the spotlight, don't get the tips of the hats, don't collect the big awards that you see on TV. And they really, really deserve that kind of thanks and appreciation and gratitude. So the character is viable. It's been around in so many different forms, both in terms of the writing, the tone, and the artwork, from one extreme to another over almost 75 years, and has still managed to survive every incarnation, every twist and turn, every new interpretation, and not only survive but thrive. The second thing I want to add is the folks who do the animation are brilliant. When you look at the work of Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski and Paul Dini and Alan Burnett and Andrea Romano, some of the best Batman stories ever have come out of the animation. Some of the best character arcs where there is room and enough episodes to develop supporting characters, both good and evil, the entire rogues gallery of supervillains. And too often I think they don't quite enjoy the spotlight the way they should. So the bottom line to the question is, there's going to continually be Batman, and there's so many different ways to present them, but I think these people need to be told to stand up and take a bow.
Absolutely. I am so on that page with you. So in an ideal world where you could direct the next lead writer, the guy who's going to helm the next big Batman project, and it can be anyone, living or dead, to take on the next
incarnation.
The next incarnation of Batman. Who would you choose? Like, especially somebody who could bring legitimacy.
Probably either Max Fleischer or Orson Welles.
Oh, my head just exploded a little bit. That's amazing.
What would Fritz Lang's Batman look like? What would Todd Browning's? What would Alfred Hitchcock's Batman look like? There are many ways to look backwards to muse about what might have been.
And can you imagine, like, Mary Shelley taking on Batman? What would that even look like? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, nobody has yet paused to look backward instead of trying to look forward. And I think there's an exciting discussion out there to be held exactly on this topic.
I want to hear, like, discussion threads happening all over the internet, like happening right now, because I want to know the answer to these questions.
We all want to know. So Michael Uslan, author of The Boy Who Loved Batman. Again, on our link section, you can get it on there. It's on Amazon and all the bookstores and all the usual suspects. Also, the executive producer on The Dark Knight Rises, coming out in a couple of days. Before we let you go, Michael, I just want to say thank you for, number one, the 89 one, all the way to The Dark Knight Rises. I haven't seen it, obviously, not yet. It's not midnight yet. But like I've always said on the show, in Nolan I trust, so I'm not worried at all. So thanks again, Michael, for letting that happen on screen.
Thank you guys very much. I love being here and talking to people who are real fans and really understand the genre and the characters.
Thanks, Michael, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thanks.
You're not even listening. What are you doing?
Oh, my ears. No, shut up. I'm listening.
To your
Yeah, I'm
antenna.
paying attention to my antenna, my starfish headband. It's so cute.
What is it called again? The meme, the Neko Mimi, myself and I? Yeah,
Neko Mimi. They used to have cat ears, but it turns out that the cat ears make me look like a furry. And so instead, I put on the starfish.
Like a furry what?
Like a furry. I'm not going to explain furries to you, Henry. That's not going to happen.
That should have been my dad's job to explain furries. But, well, I'll leave it like this. I'll tease it, and I'll say I have a want list on the show. I think I've told you and Rachel when you guys came on. Everybody that's come on the show, I told them my want list, and that is George Lucas is on top. Mr. Spielberg is on there. JJ is on there. Favreau is on there.
Yeah.
I think Tom Hanks is on there also.
These
my
are
favorite actor.
That's
my wants.
That's a standout there. Tom Hanks there.
Of course, Stan Lee is on there.
Of course.
The Shat is on there.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard Nimoy is on there.
Oh yeah.
Damon's on there.
Okay.
One of those names may be scratched off next week.
What?
So that's all I'm going to say. Be back next week to speak more geek and find out who it is.
The Geek Speak Show will be back next week with a brand new episode. In the meantime, follow them on Twitter at Geek Speak Show 1. That's the number 1. Become a fan on Facebook. Subscribe on iTunes. Watch special event coverage and the Geek Speak video show on YouTube/Geek Speak Videos. And listen to past shows in the archive section on thegeekspeakshow.com. A big thank you to the Geek Speak Show's content providers, GeekTyrant.com, Collider.com, RamaScreen.com, and MightyVille.com. The Geek Speak Show.